Hola, hi everybody. This is gonna be in English, va a ser en inglés. Y voy a hablar con Signe Ronka de FLEXAFIT. Si tienen dudas, pueden estar escribiendo las preguntas. Y vamos a ver qué tal nos va. Let's see how it goes. It's gonna be a great chat with Signe Ronka from FLEXAFIT. So I'm excited. If anyone has any questions for her, just send them, write them down, and let's see how that goes. All right. So we're just gonna wait for her to join. So Signe was like an international competitor. I'm gonna ask her about that, and then she started FLEXAFIT. So we're gonna see why she started this whole skating boot camp. So, yay. I'm gonna wait for her. If anybody wants to write anything down, now is the moment so I can add your question. And here she is. Let's see if she sends the request. Okay, there we go. Is that working? There we go. Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm so excited because we've tried to do this and you were about to have your baby, right?
Yeah, that was, oh my gosh, like 9 months ago now. He's almost 9 months.
How's the mommy life?
It is amazing. He's actually like sleeping right now. That's why I was like, okay, this is perfect timing.
Perfect moment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I know. Sometimes you don't like you know their time when they're gonna sleep, but it actually doesn't happen when you want it.
I
So
know it was actually perfect today. I just like raced around, did everything, put him to bed, and he's asleep. So hopefully he lasts at least half an hour.
yeah, right. So yeah, we only have a half an hour, so I'm just gonna start and talk about you. So I wanted to start. I mean, you have this life that I've tried to like look into, and there's a lot of questions I have about your skating, but you're still involved in skating. So, what is it that you love about it? Because it's a lifetime, right?
Yeah, no, I thought about this yesterday. I had somebody comment on a YouTube video, and it's a coach from the US, and he was very passionate about a double axel video, for example. And I was thinking to myself, like, yes, I am exactly the same way. Like, I think, I want to make the skaters better, obviously, with the off ice training, but I think that there's a lot more than just off ice training. I think the skaters need to have a strong base. They need to be able to, live their life after skating injury free as much as possible. I know that I struggled with a lot of injuries myself, so putting together this kind of program for them is essential. And I think if I had it when I was skating, I probably, who knows, but maybe would have, made it a little bit further with my career just due to not being injured. And I just want to help the skaters be better. And it's so exciting when they accomplish their goals. And it doesn't matter what level they are, what age they are. I think everybody has a goal that they need to achieve or they want to strive for. And even just getting like this much closer to their goal, it just makes me so proud and happy that I can share that experience with them.
Yeah, I understand completely. And there's that like expression kids get like, oh, I finally get it. And like I live for that expression. Like
Yeah.
I love that. I understand what you're saying. So you mentioned injuries and your injuries with I read that that's one of the reasons you quit, but it doesn't say what injuries. And that you follow up with my actual question, which was, do you think that if you had like some sort of training, like the one that you're giving or your what you work on every day with skaters, if you could have prevented it. But first I would like to know like what injuries or what injury was the worst one or the one that you see more often too, not only in
Yeah.
yourself but in others.
Yeah, no, it's a great question because I feel like, you know, I'm no physiotherapist by any means, but I literally like lived at the physiotherapist office as a skater. So when skaters come to me with certain injuries, I'm always like, oh, you know, like I had this one too, and here's what I did. And of course, you still need to go to your doctor and physio, but you know, preventing these kind of injuries now, I have so much more awareness. And I guess the major ones when I was 12 at nationals and pre-novice, I fractured like a hairline fracture in my pelvis. Like I fell on a double axle and it just popped. And it wasn't just the double axle that did it. I was feeling pain going into the competition already. And it was just one moment that did it. And it was terrible. I still to this day, like feel pain, like sitting if I sit too long. And you know, it's recovered, but there's a lot of things that come after with injuries too, with recovery. Another major one, I think this is very common with every skater, ankle injuries. I had multiple different areas of stress fractures that now I've learned can be prevented not only through injury preventative training off ice, but proper nutrition as well. So I think there's a lot to be said with, you know, the research that's coming out for young athletes, especially young females, as they're developing and their bones are growing, and repetitive stress. It puts a lot of tension on the bones, and you know it can cause stress fractures easily if you're not taking in enough nutrients as well. So not only the injury preventative aspect, but the nutrition aspect is so key and important for skaters as well.
I'm gonna jump around within like questions that I have because now we're like going back and forth. And
That's okay.
No, but this suits like one of the questions I got, like why why is it so important to build muscle? And we're in a stylish like sport and people want lean, but how would that affect on a long term a skater?
Yeah, so I mean, are you saying like people are saying you don't want to build muscle, or is it like
yeah, like a lot of people
like
like rather work on their lean like body and image rather than work on their muscle because they automatically think like, oh, muscle is fat, you know, like I look fat, I look big. So
yeah,
they're even like I've had people actually be scared to actually get their arms, you know, in shape and the muscle to I mean, you don't have to be buff, but people are scared to even just try to do push-ups because I don't want that shape in my arms. Like they're scared they're not gonna look lean as skaters do in other parts of the world.
I think that's a great question, and I think I probably talk about it a lot, and I could probably tell you that when I was 13, 14, I would say the exact same thing. I was like, I don't want to do arms, I don't want to do more legs because my legs are already big and I need to like be lean, and I had all of these same things that I would say to the trainers when I was training. And now looking back, it's very complex. It's not just as easy as saying, okay, this skater is going to do the exact same exercises and look exactly like that skater. Like it all has to do with body type. If you are a mesomorph body type versus an ectomorph body type versus endomorph, it's those specific body types will either build more lean muscle faster or slower. So there's a lot of that component as well. And then as well as like the component of how much you're lifting or how heavy of the loads you're lifting. Are you doing more higher volume versus like higher load, less repetitions, right? So I think, you know, now looking back and the research I've been doing constantly on, you know, aesthetic sports is very now leaning towards that you have to put together a training plan that is critical in the way that the skaters might train and want to look, right? So if you're building a hockey player, you build them and do a lot of heavy loaded exercises where they have a grounded feeling. But when you're building a figure skater, they need to be like explosive. They need to have that quick twitch. So doing lots of like heavy lifting, sometimes, you know, it depends on the skater. I mean, some people might benefit from that heavy load, but at the end of the day, we need to be really agile and quick. So there's a lot of exercises that you can prescribe to the skater that's not like, you know, do, you know, 100-pound deadlift or squats or that kind of stuff, that will still build muscle and lean muscle, and you're going to be powerful and strong for on ice.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, so why is it that you started FLEXAFIT or you're skating? I think you started it as a boot camp, skaters boot camp, right? First, and then you branded
Yeah.
it. That's what I remember. And I didn't read that
Yeah.
that way, but yeah. So why did you started it? And follow-up question, did you believe in your like your system right away, or did you find out that what you were, because I find that sometimes I know I should have done this and that, and after a while I see the results and yes, it worked. Did it happen to you
Yeah.
that way, or did you were like really sure that your system was going to work?
You know, it's a great question. I started this program first as figure skater boot camp because at the time I was like into doing boot camps myself. I had just quit skating. I was probably around 18, 19. And I joined this program with this amazing boxing coach who was running a boot camp out of a garage. And I would go regularly because I just missed this adrenaline rush. Like, you know, when you're competing and skating and performing, and it's always like, okay, what can I do next to be stronger? And I just missed that. So I found this place and it was just amazing. And as I was like living in this gym all the time, the trainer was like, you know, like you do a lot of fun kind of exercises that are specific to skaters. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of true. And I never really did it. Like, you know, he would tell me like, oh, your single leg squat is like way better than the average person can't even do like that, you know? So I started to think, and I was like starting to get into coaching, and I just finished university, and I was thinking like, we didn't have any of this kind of specific stuff for figure skaters. And this is going back now, maybe 2010, around that time, so maybe 11 years ago. And because I was always injured, I didn't have the opportunity to train as much. And so after, I was also still skating on varsity and I at the University of Toronto, and I noticed that with all the training I was doing in the gym and doing extra like things that I wanted to do to get better at my own skating at varsity, I noticed I was actually better at varsity than my last year of skating. And I was like, what the heck is this? Like, how did I get so strong compared to like when my last year of competition? So then it started to click, and I started working with the athletes and coaching on the ice, and noticed like, wow, their knees are turning in, their landings are not on. So then I just, in the park, I kind of just took some of my own skaters and we're like, okay, let's go and do like, you know, a boot camp. And then it started to grow, and some other coaches would send their kids, and their kids would, you know, next and next and next. And then eventually I opened up a small studio that I was renting from, and we had a camp going there. And then I realized that so many people, when I built a website, were interested in this, but they couldn't come to Toronto. So then I created this DVD, Reach New Heights, and that went worldwide. And so that's when it kind of clicked in my head that like, this is something that so many people need, and we just didn't have it. And it was kind of born that way, and it's just taken off in lots of different directions now, which is amazing.
I mean, it does take somebody, you know, how can I say this? Like, a lot of people know exercises, and a lot of people, but it takes like some sort of, I don't know, like you have something to actually make it sports specific that has worked for everybody. So that's really great, because a lot of people really love what you do because of it. So thank you. So has it, so what is FLEXAFIT now? Like, what has it developed into? Because you started it as a like off ice sort of like conditioning,
Yeah.
and now you branch it out into more different areas, right?
Yeah. So, you know, it's grown, and it continues to grow every single year as I continue to do research and work with lots of different strength and conditioning coaches through the NSCA, and learning. I'm constantly learning from other people too. It's not just like I know everything. It's not like that at all. But it essentially was like a boot camp in the beginning, and then it started to grow as a more structured program. And I think that's where it really differentiates between, you know, maybe just random exercises and things that coaches might, you know, follow along and do some things on the side. We really built this to tailor it to skaters based on the periodized plan of the skating set season. So every 3 months, they do new different program plans that's structured based on the competitive season when they're competing. And when we were doing it with the skating clubs, we would actually have like a competitive season. We would have like the Star Skate in Canada, we call it, which is a little bit more like just under, I guess, competitive a little bit. And so each skater had a peak that they would go to, for example, sectionals or nationals. And we would, well, I personally would build out the plans, and all the trainers would train those plans for the skaters. And that's where this is like a little bit different now, because all the exercises through our program is basically the plyometrics that we're offering, the core, the functional training, all of that incorporates the exercises that need to be done during this time frame. So it's not just like random core exercise or random box jumps or whatever. There's a thought and structure, everything, and why we do it. I think the biggest thing, you know, to ask yourself always when you're putting programs together for skaters is, why do you prescribe an exercise, and what is it benefiting? If it's just to do something random, there's no point to do it, really. It's you need to have like a reason behind everything you're doing, and I think that's what makes it truly different for the athletes, to see the success behind it.
And what you've mentioned is you keep learning yourself, so that shows where you know what works for what. Like, every person's gonna need their own thing. Like, you know, there's people that can jump high but can't spin or snap or, you know, fast enough, and you have to work on that twitch muscles and so on and so on. So yeah, that's great. So when did the idea for the magazine begin?
Sorry, say it again. I just didn't hear that.
When did the idea for the magazine?
Oh, the magazine? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so basically the magazine kind of grew. I was actually traveling to Florida for a vacation many years ago. And in the airplane, I was sitting there reading, I don't know, some sort of fitness magazine. And I was thinking to myself, like, there is no magazine for figure skaters that is specific to what they need. I mean, there's other magazines out there. I'm not going to discredit the magazines out there, but they were not geared for like fitness or mental training or injury prevention. And I just thought to myself, like, how great would it be as a skater or a coach or a parent who's just getting into skating, or they're in competitive skating, and, you know, just wanting to have more information that's like research based. So everything for me is about research. I think if you can back your information by research, it's really powerful, because, you know, you have a valid argument to what you're doing, and, you know, and that way you can prove that it's actually working versus just random experiment, right? So I wanted to do it where we have industry specialists. So all our writers are involved in figure skating in one way or another, whether it's in nutrition or mental training or injury prevention or fitness. And then giving them a different perspective per season. So kind of like what we're doing with our training, taking it to the magazine and giving them an idea of like, okay, this is the preseason magazine. So in preseason, these are exercises you might want to do, or this is some of the nutrition before competition that you might want to add some snack ideas, right? So it became like that. And now it's actually really evolved over the years. We've gotten a lot better at doing it. Obviously, as you learn new things, you constantly are evolving it. But yeah, and then we have a spotlight, so we feature like yourself in the one of latest magazines, and just spotlighting like what people are doing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody like always, you know, Olympic champion kind of thing. I think it's really interesting to hear other stories about, you know, different level athletes, maybe adults. So we're kind of trying to explore those avenues as well for the spotlight. So we have a cover contest right now where a skater can be featured on the cover and tell their story of what they're doing for nutrition and fitness. And I think that inspires a lot of younger skaters too, because they can see what their peers are doing as well.
And how do you find the writers, or do you have them all in-house, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, we look for writers constantly. So we have some writers who have been with us from the beginning, and then we have some writers that we just found. And I mean, it's interesting because sometimes it's a word of mouth. Like, you know, someone writes for us and then they say, oh, I have somebody who I know who does this. And so we're not technically actively seeking writers, but a lot of people come in and, hey, if there's anyone out there listening to this and you are a specialist in some form or another, you can message us and possibly write for the magazine as well.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm gonna try and write something for you. We'll
talk. Yeah.
I have another question. You recently launched your certification for like a course for coaches, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that came to happen, and why do you think that was there was a necessity for that to happen?
Yeah. So, you know, it took many, many years to put this properly together. And it just came about now where, you know, we launched it and released it. So initially, I think the main thing is that constantly we have coaches who inquire about our program. And, you know, we have done so many workshops worldwide. I mean, prior to COVID, we were traveling almost every week or two to different places and, you know, teaching the program to skaters there. Coaches were always interested, like, how can we keep this going? You know, it's really important that they learn it now, but also keep it going. And so that's where, like, the idea came about many years ago when already lots of people were inquiring. But in the last 3 years, we actually launched a license program, and we had a certified licensee in South Africa. And so that was the first step. And then now we kind of organized it to make it more of a almost like an educational piece as well. So it's teaching fundamentals of how to watch for alignment on exercises and what kind of exercise would be appropriate for younger skaters versus older skaters, and how to transition those progressions, for example. And then a lot of it is also how to start teaching strength-based exercises for skaters, and at what point do you start teaching sport-specific exercises for skaters. And I think these are all questions that coaches a lot of times have, because many coaches, I would say, like, maybe don't have a, you know, degree in fitness or a background in fitness, and they might be doing stuff already, but this is just an opportunity now to have a more kind of educational base. And maybe they don't necessarily want to take a personal training credit or whatever, but this is something really specific to what they're already doing. And they also get the background of the technique and the fundamentals and building from there.
And how often are you giving that course? Because it's like a weekend long, right?
Yeah, so it's every 3 months, because you know, we want to make sure we have enough time to prepare all the material for the next time. So we just did one recently. The next one is in July, and then we'll have another one in October. So yeah, every 3 months, if people want to register, they are welcome to shoot an email and inquire about more information if that's something they want.
And that's online, right? So anyone who wants to do it can do it.
Yeah,
I'm really looking into it.
Oh, we can chat about this later too.
Yeah. No, I see it, and I've taken different things that are similar to your curriculum for it. So it's really interesting, because I go back to other questions that I have for you regarding sports specific. Like, when you start with sports specific, because you have to develop those like coordination skills and other things before you can go into sports specific. But like, people really want to know all these questions regarding like sports specific. So I'm going to start with that. When you start, like, a kid, how old can a kid be to start doing off ice? And aside from, like, you know, like what I mentioned, just coordination, like more sports specific, like for figure skating.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've done a lot of presentations on this exact topic over the many years, and I think that this is such a complex question, because, you know, every skater develops differently. Every skater has their own strengths and weaknesses. Some kids have amazing coordination really quickly, and some kids develop coordination and agility skills later on. So it's always finding a balance, I think, between the age and the appropriate time to develop the skater to move on to a next phase. You know, the myth is that, oh, we shouldn't let young kids even touch a weight, but you know, if they have the you know, body type and the appropriate strength behind it, there's no harm in, you know, a little 5-pound weight to hold on. But then again, come back to the question, like, why are you giving them the weight, right? So it's like, do they really need the weight, or are you just giving them the weight because you want to like look like you are getting them to do something, you know, challenging, right? It's like, you always have to know why you're doing something, and if it makes sense and it's logical and it's a proper progression, then there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the biggest thing for sports specific is exactly like what you said. It's, you know, when they're younger, you have to develop the, I call them the ABCs, it's a very popular thing: agility, balance, coordination. And flexibility you can start from any age, really. It's not I wouldn't say that's super sports specific. It's actually quite good for them to keep stretching as they develop, because obviously we know if they stop, the muscles get tighter and they lose that flexibility over time. But if you start developing their agility, balance, coordination skills, and I always say, you know, I personally played competitive soccer until I was 13, and I really miss soccer. Like, it was like, I guess we, you know, in football or soccer, whatever you want to call it, in whichever area you are. But I was a really good soccer player, and I probably wanted to go, you know, to the national level in soccer, but I had to choose at 13 which one, because, you know, soccer, you know, I was a little bit aggressive, so I would get hurt a lot because I would attack the ball quite a bit. So I had to choose. But I played other sports until I was 13. Like, there was no, you know, just figure skating. And I think that's where maybe people think, like, should you specialize in your sport really young? I don't know. I mean, it's really interesting because I see so many kids who I throw a ball to and they don't know how to catch it. You know, it's like, it's like, well, when did you forget to learn that in, you know, when you're younger? So, you know what I mean? Like, it's
I see
those
kids
basics.
that can't run. Like, they run same arm, same leg. I'm like, why are you doing doubles? Like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, or even just basic skipping. Like, you see some, you know, not, I don't know, like randomly sometimes, like 13, 14-year-olds who don't know how to skip, for example, right? I mean, that's a skill that you have to learn, but I would say, like, those are all skills you can learn when you're younger, like the agility component, the coordination, you know, doing a basic cartwheel, basic gymnastics, basic soccer, basic hand-eye coordination, right? Running, throwing, catching, you know, sprinting, all of those things should be developed first before, like, you always want to develop the athlete first, and then the sports specific part comes after. And there's no one to say that sports specific can't be integrated in some way, fun way, in the agility components, right? Like, for example, you do some donkey kicks across the floor. That's great coordination and good, like, exit on the, you know, landings, and all, you can kind of put some little, like run, split jump, right? Lots of fun ways to start incorporating it when they're younger. And then as they develop, of course, then you get into the more like, okay, we're going to start off-ice jumps and we're going to start plyometrics, and that's getting into more sports specific, but more strength power detailed, right? Versus like actual movement patterns.
On the same sort of topic, when we talk about cross training, is there any sport you think that is really not compatible with figure skating?
Long distance running, like a marathon. So I think, I mean, you know, there's always a place and a time and place if you love running, but the research does show that, like, if you do a lot of slow twitch muscle fiber exercise and your sport is specifically on high twitch muscle fiber exercises, it does show that you can actually start developing slower twitch fibers. It's not to say that you can't develop both at the same time, but why would you want to, like, if you're really like competitive in your sport and that's what you're trying to go for, why would you want to put yourself, you know, developing slower twitch fibers when you could do sprinting as cardio, for example, instead, or like, you know, a smaller distance run, like a 5K is still good with good speed, right? So there's lots of ways to incorporate exercise, but making it more sport specific, like an anaerobic component where you're doing a high intensity sprint and then doing an exercise after, right? So I would say like longer distance running. I mean, personally, I think biking is okay, but also same thing, like, you know, that kind of repetitive movement. If you're doing like an uphill sprint on the bike, maybe that's a little different, but just like that repetitive movement of the slower twitch muscle fibers, probably those kind of exercises are maybe limit them if you're in like a really competitive mode.
Okay, well then I only have two more questions. I mean, I have a lot of more questions, but I'm only gonna ask a couple more, and then we're gonna probably be done. So what are 3 exercises? This is one question that I got. What would you recommend? Like 3 exercises that a skater cannot miss, either for like warm up or like overall. It doesn't matter.
They cannot miss. They have to do these ones. Oh man, that is really hard.
Or like, I mean, which ones do you recommend? Maybe
yeah,
for like
no,
all levels.
yeah, I could probably list off like hundreds, but okay, so my go-to like really key ones, I would say the single leg squat is probably a good one for any level if you don't have knee pain, obviously. So if there is knee pain, you know, there's ways to modify, but like the shoot the duck, you know, sit spin exercise, like that is very important because first of all, you do that movement on the ice with the spin. And second of all, it's one of those things that if you look at the movement pattern, figure skaters actually have a lot of times an imbalance with quads. So the posterior chain versus the anterior. So when you look at the back of the muscles, a lot of times when you test a single leg squat on the skater, they can go down, but then they can't get back up, right? And that shows the weakness in the glutes and hamstrings. Now, there is also a possibility that it's not a strength issue, but this gets a little bit more complicated. So that could be like a full hour conversation, but it could also be like a mobility issue in the ankles or the hips or the back. But you can test those things separately. I work with a skater who's a senior level competitor, and she can't get up for the life of her on a single leg squat yet because we need to work on not her strength, but her mobility in the ankles. So it's like you can see, you need to know how to assess that. But sometimes, you know, the coaches will just say she's weak or he's weak or, you know, he can't even get up on a single leg squat. But maybe it's not the weakness. And I always think also, just as a side note, I'm trailing off a bit, but sometimes the coaches will, common things are like, well,
I'm listening.
the core is pretty strong. It just might mean that they're not strong in that functional movement that they need to perform. So it could be coming from the hips or upper body, lack of strength in the upper body. So you have to see around what's going on and why they're breaking in a jump, for example, or what's going on when they twist out of a jump. Is it their core or is it their upper back and they're not holding the position? So I would say, go back to your 3 ones. Let's say single leg squat. And then maybe I'll do one for like, you know, core and upper body, just so it's like, you know, really equal on the body. So for the core, I would say, I mean, a very simple basic one would be a plank and add a twist. For warm up, that would be a really great one for rotation, or even just standing rotations. Like for warm up, those core trunk rotational exercises are so important for skaters. Warming up the spine is critical. If you don't warm up the spine, you can really feel compression after time. So I would say any kind of rotational core exercises or dynamic movements with twisting before they skate for warm up would be key, and incorporating it into practice for like strong positions. But if we talk about warm up, and then for upper body, I would say, did you say something, or if
You're
maybe
back.
just
You're back. No.
Yeah.
I'm just like nodding, like yeah. Because
Oh,
you,
okay.
I'm thinking like before you say it, I'm like planks, and then you're like planks, so I'm like yes, thank you. So keep going. You're doing great.
Okay, and an upper body one I would say would be maybe I just love this exercise is the reverse flies for the back and the lats
Okay.
because I think we do so push-ups all the time and it's like we're getting like shortening the muscles here and then everything starts to look like this when we skate, so we need to do more back exercise to pull our posture back and we're like, you know, sitting and we stroke and we have a nice line. So you know, building the back muscles, it's something that, you know, like you said, no one wants to do upper body. No, a lot of people don't want to do upper body because they think they're going to get big arms, but really, if you do 5-10 pounds of weights and you're working your arms, they're not going to get huge. You have to put more load on the muscle to build muscle fiber. So, so I would say like really just strengthen. And if you watch, actually, maybe a good point, because we have an amazing stretch coach, Martha, who was a former ballerina. And I often watch what she does in the studio when she's on a break, and she's constantly with like 5 pounds, 3 pounds doing exercises that she used to do in ballet, and she is toned like you would not believe. So it's not that you can't do a little bit of weights, and the ballerinas actually work with a little bit of weights as well. So, and if you take a look at a ballerina, they're very lean, right? So yeah, I think those three.
I love that. I mean, those same things you could probably do with like bands, you know, just pulling them
band oh my gosh, I love band exercise. Yeah, for sure. Can do actually the same.
About everything for like hours, I think.
We need like a 10-hour discussion to go through everything.
That's so funny. Okay, so this is my last question from somebody else. Growing pains, how do you tackle them? Like, you know, knees start hurting, or I don't know, whatever, like ankles because kids are growing. How do you work with that?
How do you work with injuries? Like when they come in with a knee pain?
They're coming with growing pains. Like it's
growing
happening because they're growing. So
yes.
Would you pre-work it or like expect this to happen? So let's just, you know, get our body stronger, or how do you tackle?
Yeah, that's a great question. I see skaters on a regular basis with growing pains and little tweaks and little injuries. And, you know, as a trainer, one thing I think, you know, you learn with experience and time is how to work on the fly, right? Because you might have a lesson plan ready and they come and they're like, I twisted my ankle playing soccer yesterday, and or whatever, like running down the stairs. And then you're like, oh, okay, scratch that, and we have to do something for the hour, right? So but also the growing pains, if you know about it, there's ways to work with them, and also with their physiotherapist, so they might give them exercise to do and then you might supplement. But there's so many modifications for everything that you can work around. So I had a girl who was injured on both her feet. She had stress fractures from skating, and she still had to keep up her leg strength. So I developed a comprehensive program plan for her that didn't involve standing on her feet, and it still worked her legs like crazy. And it was great because by the time she got back to on the ice, she didn't miss too much because we kept her legs going without actually having to physically stand on them while she was injured and she just couldn't put weight on them. So there's always ways that you can build a program plan. You just have to have, you know, the knowledge base to do that properly, because you also need to consider, you know, how far range of motion they can get into if their knees are hurting, for example. I have a lot of skaters with like Osgood Slaughters, and they can't do the single leg squat. So it's dealing with like how much pain can you handle, you know. Don't push yourself more than a 6 or more than a 7 this day if the next day you felt like throbbing pain, right? Or they come with constant shin pain and you have to do off ice jumps, you know. Like you need to know how to limit the repetitions and not push them through too many, because they won't be able to move for the next few days after if you do too much repetition. So yeah, I think it's difficult, but it's, you know, I think every skater comes in with their own kind of thing that they need. And so when it's one-on-one, it's a lot easier. If it's a group class, that's where it gets a little bit more challenging, because, you know, the trainer has 10, 15 skaters and you have to adjust one person to that. So you might want to have like a list of exercises that, you know, like next time when they come in, they have this kind of knee pain or something. So you give them, okay, like here's a list of modified versions or alternate versions of the exercise that we're doing today. Choose one that works for you and do it, right? So that way they're not missing out the whole workout, but they're able to continue with the class and feel part of it.
Okay, very last question. So you were a international ISU medalist, a junior world competitor. You started this program. You have the coach's certification. You have the magazine. You are the editor for the magazine. You are a mom. How do you do it all? That's the question, because I'm a mom and I try to do a lot. And I feel like I've never met somebody that like exceeded what I did, but like definitely you do.
Oh my gosh, you are so kind. You know, if I actually thought about it, I think I probably would go insane. But yeah, you know, you wake up every morning and you just like, you know what you have to do. Every night
follow the plan.
I look at my work schedule and I think like, okay, when am I going to put him to bed? Like time it perfectly to take half an hour for him to fall asleep, and then he's going to fall asleep, and then I'm going to do this, and we're going to make food, and then I'm going to work, and then I'm going to go back and get him, then play with him for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to pump, and then I'm going to do that. And then by the end of the night, I'm like, okay, now what do I need to do for my business? And then I'm like, emails, like, you know, so it's just a every day, but I'm always high energy. So at the end of the day, like if I, you know, I have a coffee in the morning, just one, and then I just put the blindfolds on and just run like a horse, you know?
A straight line, not looking to the side.
Don't look to the side, just keep running.
Well, you're a great role model for everybody, and thank you for sharing your life and your knowledge. And I know it wasn't like I couldn't, you know, ask a lot of questions because we could talk forever, but I really appreciate you taking your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. I've never done an Instagram live. Maybe we should do it more often.
Yeah, we could talk about anything you want. So awesome. Yeah, we could do like a regular once a month and talk about knee injuries and back.
Yeah, we could put some fun program together. That would be great. And I'll connect with you about the magazine for sure.
Yeah. And about the certification.
Yes, and the certification, of course.
Thanks to everybody who joined us, and thanks to you, Signe. And Signe. How do you say your name? Like I've never said it to you. I just read it.
Yeah, Signe. Okay. That's it.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks everybody, and thanks to you. And let's keep in touch. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.